What's going on, everybody? Captain Horn 23 here, and today we're going to learn how to start up the Airbus A320 from cold and dark all the way to takeoff in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So guys, before we begin, please, if you would, hit that subscribe button down below and go ahead and ring that little bell so you know when I upload any more Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 videos. And my Discord is also in the description. Feel free to join it. I'm at around 500 members now, and you can find some people to fly with in multiplayer in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, or just chill out there. And so I will see you in the Discord. So let's get right into this process. Alright guys, so now that we are in the captain's seat in the Airbus A320, it is cold and dark. So let's get this thing up and running. I'm going to show you how to start it up, all the proper procedures. I'm even going to show you how to program the MCDU down here and everything like that. Now, first thing, if you're wondering how to connect this jetway, it's pretty simple, and I will show you that. But first, what we need to do is actually turn on our power. So if we go to the overhead panel just like this, we'll see that there's a green available, and above it says external power. If you click on that button, now you have power to your aircraft. Everything is lit up. But we do need to turn on the batteries, and those are going to be located right here, kind of above and to the left of the external power. They say off. Simply click on both of them just like that. Alright, and now everything is powered up and ready to go. Now unfortunately Microsoft doesn't simulate the IRS alignment, which is right here. We see it says in-op, and I really don't like that at all, because I like to align my IRSs myself, but it is what it is. So anyway, in order to connect the jetway, we want to come up to this menu, the drop down menu, and open our ATC window. And then if we tune, I'm at Charlotte, it's going to be a different airport for you, but tune the ground at whatever airport you are at. Scroll down to ground services, and then we see request jetway connection.
Charlotte
Just
ground
do that,
Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray tree 20.
and the
Could you
jetway
please
will
connect the
start
jetway
to
the
move
aircraft?
towards us, and it'll let our passengers board the aircraft. There it goes. It's got a very awesome animation, so if you haven't tried that out, be sure to try that, because it is awesome. I like the way it wraps around the door right here. There we go. Alright, so now our jetway's connected. And this beeping is because the door is open. We can see this on our middle screen right here. Door. All you have to do to get rid of that is press this master warning right there. The next step in preparing the aircraft is we need to get some lighting on in here. Now if we go to the kind of the bottom left in the overhead panel right here, this is all of your lights right here. What we want to do when we're parked at the gate is turn this strobe to auto, which is the middle setting. See, we can go one more of that strobe on. We want it to set to auto. Alright, and then over here on the opposite side we have nav and logo. Just turn that on, and that is all you have to do for the lights. And this is the point where you would turn on the seatbelt signs, but unfortunately, again, it's not simulated. It says in-op, we can't turn it on and off, which is, I don't like that either. So next what we need to do is head over into Simbrief and get our flight plan. So let's head over to Simbrief. Alright guys, so here we are at Simbrief, and Simbrief is actually a pretty simple program to use, and it's super useful when planning flights in any kind of flight simulator, IFR, or even VFR. The link will be in the description. Just you can click on that and follow along. Now, you do have to make an account, so go ahead and do so. And then we want to come over here to new flight, and you'll see this page here. Now, under here in flight info, you can feel free to fill in the airline. So if you were Delta, you'd put DAL, that's DAL, or American is AAL. This isn't really necessary. All you really need is the depart and arrive. But for added realism, you can add it in an airline and flight number. Now depart, I'm going to put KCLT because that's where we are. And let's just say arrival is going to be Atlanta, Georgia. And it gives us an alternate here. After that, you need to pick your airframe, and we are an Airbus A320, and I've already got one saved here. But if you scroll down, you can find it right here, the A320-200, just like that. And you can change your departure runway or arrival runway. Now, it does take into account real world weather conditions. So in the real world, Charlotte is actually departing via runway 36 center right now. But if you have the winds or something different in the simulator, you can change that. It gives you your scheduled time and route. You can fill in your passengers. You can change your arrival runway, even though that's not guaranteed. Taxi out, taxi in. I'm pretty sure this is the time it takes in order to taxi out and taxi in to Atlanta. And you can fill in your captain name if you want right here. Now this this AirX cycle says outdated. This is because you do need a Navigraph subscription. Like I can actually unlock this because I do have a Navigraph subscription. See, it's unlocked now. It costs like $30 per year, which isn't that bad. But the real world navigational data updates every 28 days. So that's why you have to constantly update this. Alright, and then down here we have our route. Now, if you're going to be flying IFR, you need to know really what these are. And so I'm not going to really go into that much detail about it. But essentially this very first one is more than likely, actually I'm pretty sure 100% all the time, going to be what's called a SID. And that stands for Standard Instrument Departure, just SID, Standard Instrument Departure, SID. There's multiple ones at different airports, and all it really does is reduces the workload of air traffic control, because this provides a lot of separation from incoming aircraft and other aircraft on other runways. The second one is more than likely going to be what's called a transition, and this transition gets you out of the airspace of the airport and into your en route altitudes and stuff like that. So we're going to be departing the Bobsey's 4 SID and using the Tinsley transition. And then at the very end, you're most likely going to have what's called a STAR, and that stands for Standard Terminal Arrival. And it's pretty much the exact same as a SID. It reduces the workload of air traffic control, and it provides separation to aircraft that are departing that airport. So at Atlanta, we're using the Aussie 1 STAR, and this right here is the Levi transition, and this allows us to transition into our arrival into Georgia. So, and if you scroll down, you can see a route of your flight here. Alright, next what we want to do is scroll back up to the top and come down under dispatch options and hit generate OFP, and then hit yes. What this does is it pretty much makes all your paperwork like what you would see in real life if you were a dispatcher for an airline. And so this whatever you call it, OFP, if we scroll down, here's all of our paperwork here. Now this does look like a lot, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, all you really need is this very first page. Like, that's all you need, because if you scroll down, it gets into weights and flight log and all this stuff. So all we're going to be using is this first page here. Now, and the only important stuff on this page is this right here, the CI-18. All this is cost index. So my cost index is 18. If we scroll down a little more, we can get to the this right here. This is your reserves, the fin res, and it's 2,500 pounds of fuel. By the way, you can change your units from like kilograms to pounds if you want. And if we scroll down further, we can get our route right here. And this even tells us the departure runway and arrival runway here. And we can get our cruising altitude, which is going to be right here. Flight level 340. It's right under the alternate. And then it says flight steps KCLT 0340. That is your cruising altitude. Or you can just scroll up here and it'll give it to you right here. Cruise, flight level 340. Alright, so that's really all that we need in Simbrief. So let's head back into the simulator and get this MCDU up and running. We are back in the aircraft, and what we need to do is head over to our MCDU. And there is a very quick way of doing this if you don't want to, like, you know, angle your camera down and just zoom in on it. And that's as far as you can zoom in, so it's kind of hard to read. All you have to do is press left control and number 5 on your keyboard, and it'll bring you right down to it like that. And you can use the arrow keys to move over to get it kind of centered. Alright, now this MCDU does look quite complicated, but it's honestly really easy to understand. It's kind of like a steep learning curve, but it doesn't take that long to learn it. So the first thing we want to do is press this INIT button. This is the init page, and it's right beside data right here. And if we click it, it has some information that we need to fill in here. And the very first thing we need to fill in is this from and to. And now this is pretty self-explanatory. You need to use the ICAO codes. So for instance, I'm at Charlotte, so KCLT. It types right down here in the scratch pad. And then we need to put that slash in. And we're going to Atlanta, Georgia, which is KATL. So this is what yours should look like, with different codes, of course. And then you just click this button beside it right here, and it fills it in. Or not. Okay, that was weird, a little bug or something, but it does fill it in, and it's going to bring you to this page. All you have to do is hit this little return right here. And there it goes, it's filled in up there. Next, you can fill in your flight number if you want. It's not really necessary. This co-route is a company route, and you can save different routes if you want. I've never used that function, but it's there if you want it. And then we have latitude, longitude. This is typically where you would fill in your IRS, but it automatically does it for you, so we don't have to worry about it. And then we get to our cost index. And this is what I was talking about. If we go back to Simbrief, it's right here, the cost index 18. And so we can just fill that in. You just type the 1 and the 8 down here and fill it in like that. And then our cruise and flight level is for some reason already filled in, but it was 340 on Simbrief, so we can change that. And the way we do that is simply type in FL for flight level and then 340 and then enter it, and it automatically changes the temperature as well. Alright, so that is it for the init page. Next, what we need to do is head over to our flight plan, and we'll notice that some stuff is already filled in here. By the way, the flight plan button is on the far left under direct and above airport. It's just F-PLN. And some stuff is already filled in here. We got KCLT, a decelerate, and Atlanta, and then end of plan. Now, we need to fill all this stuff in. So, if you remember the SID that we're going to take and the runway, you need to know that. So, click on the little button beside from KCLT or whatever your code is, and then it's going to bring us to this page. And then just hit the same exact button right beside departure. And then you need to get your runway, which again is shown in your route on Simbrief. Right here, so we have 36 center. So we can use this little arrow key. The up arrow will scroll it down. I know it doesn't make much sense, but it's just something you got to get used to. So here is 36 center. Find your runway and then click the little button beside it. And then it says available SIDs. This is what I was talking about, the SIDs. And if you guys remember, I had the Bobsy 4 SID, and you can find that right here, right after the runway, Bobsy 4. And you need to remember this Tinsley transition. Yours is going to be different unless you're departing from Charlotte. Alright, so hit whatever, or the button beside whichever SID you need, Bobsy 4, and here it is. It pops up on the right side, the Tinsley. Or we could have selected the B&A transition. There is going to be different transitions as well. but Simbrief gave us the Tinsley, so let's press on that Tinsley. And then you just have to hit this insert down here, the red orangish button. Press the button beside it. And now we see a lot more stuff has been filled in. Alright, the next thing we need to do is scroll down using our up arrow again until we find the deceleration right here. Typically it would have a discontinuity or something, but you notice that we don't have anything else filled in from Tinsley. Now we need to manually fill in the rest of our route, and you'll notice it says DCT. All that stands for is direct to Levi, which just so happens to be the transition for Atlanta. So to fill in our arrival, we're arriving at 09 left in Atlanta, Georgia. Alright, so we click on the destination, and then we hit arrival instead of departure because we are arriving at Atlanta. Alright, and our runway was 09 left, so we click ILS 09 left, and now it's going to give us a list of stars available, and we have the Aussie 1 right here, star. So I'm going to scroll down until I find that star. Right there it is, Aussie 1. Click it, and now it's going to give you a VIA, but you don't need any VIAs. So just hit the no VIAs, the button beside no VIAs. And now here's our transition on the right side again, and we had the Levi transition. So we just scroll down, and there it is right there, Levi. Click it, and then hit this temporary insert again. There we go. And now you will notice that we are going direct to the Levi transition. I'm not sure why it's not showing up here, but it is there. And now after you get all this filled in, you can check and see if it's correct by scrolling up to the top from the very beginning, so KCLT for me. And then if we look at our map right here, let me go out here. So our map right here, if we go up here beside our altimeters, we can switch this over from arc to plan, like that, and you'll notice the map has changed now. And we can set the range on the knob right beside it, so I usually set it to 40. Alright, and now make it where you can see both your MCDU and your little map right here. By the way, this is called an ND. Alright, and once you are on plan and you have your MCDU in view, you want to hit this little up arrow, the same arrow that we used, and you'll notice whenever you click it, it's going to start stepping through on that map, and this steps you through your entire plan. So there's Tinsley transition, and that's going to get us to our en route. And then right there is our decelerate, and you'll see it has us come in and like come around to this Ryan, and this is the beginning of the star, and then it'll lead you directly into the runway. So now you should be able to see how stars are very useful, that the air traffic controller does not really have to vector you in whenever you have this star active, because you have all these waypoints you can follow just straight into the runway, just like that. So that is how you check if your route is going to work. Alright, so next what we have to do is fill in our perf page, and this is the final step in filling in your FMC. So we're going to click this perf button, which is kind of in the very middle beside progress and in the init page. It just says perf. So go ahead and click on that, and inside here we're going to have, this is our takeoff configuration essentially. So over here, starting on the top left, we have our V1, which is 119, rotate is 125, and V2 is 128. Now this is pretty much spot on. It may not be exactly correct, but it does compensate for the weight of the aircraft, and if this was like a fully loaded A320, it might, rotate might be at 150 knots instead of 125. Next, we have what's called a transition altitude, and this is the altitude at which your altimeters go to standard. And it says 10,000 feet. Now, this is going to be different depending on where you fly. In the United States, the transition altitude everywhere is 18,000 feet. If you are in, I believe, Europe, or I know for a fact in the United Kingdom, the transition altitude is actually 6,000 feet. So, depending on where you live, this will be different. But since I am in the United States, our transition altitude is going to be 18,000, just like that. Type it in, and then click the button beside it. And there we go. Alright, and next we have our runway over here. It says 36 center. Our slats, retard to shift. I don't really mess with that. And then we have our flaps / THS. And apparently this THS is not yet simulated. So flaps we will fill in. And then our flex to temp. This is pretty much the temperature at what the engines will be running at. Or, you know, the outside air temperature. And in order to get both of these, what we need to do is actually head to another website. And it looks like this right here. The link will be in the description. It's an A320 takeoff performance calculator. And this is pretty simple to use as well. So first we have aircraft up here. Obviously we want to set it to A320 because we are in an A320. Engine, just leave it at CFM. It's not exactly the engines that Microsoft has simulated, but it is pretty close and it won't cause too many issues. Units, you can change this however you wish to metric or imperial. I just recommend leaving it in metric. Origin, we're going to fill that in as KCLT. And next, what we want to do is hit this METAR button beside it. What this does is it gets the weather information. And if you don't know how to read a METAR, I'm going to go over it real quickly. So the first thing is your departure airport. This is the time. And well, the first two digits is the day of the month, so it is August the 20th. And then 1652 Zulu is the Zulu time. And then this is going to give you your wind. So VRB is variable at 5 knots. There's not really any direction that it's moving it, but it is moving at 5 knots. 10 statute miles is your visibility. This is your cloud, so we got scattered at 2,500 feet, broken at 3,500 feet, broken at 25,000 feet. This is your temperature and dew point, so 27 Celsius and 19 Celsius. Altimeter is 3003, that's important, remember that. Altimeter 3003. And then here's just your remarks, which is not really important unless you're like a real life captain. Alright, next what we need to do is set our flaps, and I just recommend leaving it at 1+F. You can take off on 2 if you want, but there's not really any point. Just leave it at 1. Our packs are going to be on. That's your air conditioning. Anti-ice will be off unless you're in Alaska or somewhere really cold. And the runway, this is going to be depending on you. If it's raining where you are at, then obviously it's going to be wet. But at Charlotte right now, it is not raining at all, so I'm going to leave it dry. Next, we want to come over here to runway and select your active runway. And if you guys remember, at Charlotte it is currently 36 center, and that's going to fill in some stuff here. And that is all you have to do. Just simply hit this calculate button, just like that. And we'll notice down here we have T-Flex Max 66. Alright, so that's what we need to fill into that flex temp is 66. So let's head back into the simulator. And the flex to temp right here, just enter whatever yours was. So mine was 66, and then hit the button beside it. There we go. And then our clean flaps / THS, we selected 1+F, so we just want to put in 1 there. And remember, it's not simulated, so we can just put /0 and then fill it in just like that. And there we go. So that is everything we need to do for the MCDU. I like to hit the flight plan button again, just so my runway that I'm using is right there. Alright, next what we have to do, guys, is set up our autopilot. And it's going to be this very middle, why does it keep doing that? It's going to be the very middle panel right here. And oh, by the way, you can switch this back to ARC if you're done with the plan, because this is your map. Alright, so anyway, this very middle panel right here, this is your autopilot. And simply speaking, this right here, this knob is your speed, SPD. This is your heading. This is autopilot 1, autopilot 2, and auto throttle. And then here's our altitude. This is the only one that we need to worry about. all you want to do is raise this to your cruising altitude, which, if you guys remember, mine is 34,000 feet. So I'm just going to raise that up to 34,000, just like that. And that is actually all we need to do for the autopilot. Next, what we want to do is set our QNH, or altimeters, and this is depending on where you live as well. If you are in the United States, then you're going to be using what I'm using, which is inches of mercury. If you are literally anywhere else in the world, you're going to use what's called hectopascals, which is 1013 is the standard. But I am in the United States, so I'm going to be using inches of mercury. And our altimeter from the METAR is 3003, right there. So I'm going to kick this up to 3003, just like that. And it does adjust on both sides. Sometimes aircraft, you need to adjust both of these separately. Alright, and next what we want to do is turn on our flight director, which is right under here, this FD. And that's going to pop up a little purple thing on our PFD here. So if we click that, my apologies, not purple, it's green actually. Alright, and with that being said, we can now move on to starting our engines, taxiing, and taking off. Alright guys, so starting our engines and getting a pushback is actually really simple. The Airbus makes it super easy to start your engines. First thing you want to do is turn on your beacon light if you want some realism. What this is going to do is it's going to turn on a red flashing light right here. You can see it kind of flashing. And this allows other aircraft, or alerts them that your engines are about to start, and people on the ground. Next, what we want to do is come up here beside the light, and we see this little APU, and we have master SW and start. You want to turn on this master SW, or master switch, and then you want to wait like 5 seconds and hit this start button here. And now if we go outside of the aircraft, we can hear an engine starting up. Just like that. And what the APU is it's called an auxiliary power unit. It's pretty much a little jet engine in the tail section right here that runs your air conditioning while your engines aren't running. It also allows you to start your engines. So if you do not have the APU up and running, then your engines will not start. And eventually it's going to say available right here, just like that. And what we can do after that is turn off our external power, and it's going to switch over to our auxiliary power unit power. Then that's the APU gen here. It should be blank. Alright, after that, we can go ahead and turn on all of our fuel pumps. If you don't do this, your engines will not start. So click all 6 of these, and your fuel pumps should be up and running. Next, what we want to do is we are ready for a pushback. So you can either do this through the ATC, or you can do Shift and P. And what this is going to do is we can see our little cart moving, and it's going to start pushing us back. Now once it connects, we do want to disengage our parking brake, and you'll notice the jetway is automatically disconnecting. And that person is obviously not aware that our engines are about to start. One more thing that you do want to do is turn on what's called the APU bleed, and this allows air to come in. And it's right here under the cockpit and forward cabin knobs. So turn that on, and you'll hear your air conditioning to start up. Alright, and he is pushing us back, so we're going to release our parking brake. And now, to start our engines, it's very simple, as I said. What you want to do is come down here below the throttle quadrant, turn this little selector all the way to the right, and then select engine 1 or 2, it doesn't matter, I usually start with engine 2. And that is it. Now what you can do is watch this N2, which is right here, it's climbing. 7, 8, 9, and that's all you have to do. Now your engine will start up. There it goes, it's starting to spin. And we're going to start seeing our N1 climb. Now, the Airbus A320neo does allow you to start both engines at once, but if you want to realistically do it, start one engine at a time. Alright, there goes our N1 is starting to climb, and our engine temperature is also climbing. What we're going to do is make sure that engine is stable before we start our second engine. Also, you want to keep an eye out on this pushback because it will just push you back to infinity if you're not careful. The Microsoft really needs to fix their pushback, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it right here. We hear our power transfer unit is starting up. Alright, and that engine is stable, so we can go ahead and flip this switch for engine number 1. And it will start up. And by the way, once this tug stops pushing, you can go ahead and set your parking brake. And if you're not aware of where that is, it is right here in the very back. And when it's to the left, it's off, like if it's pointing straight up. And if it's to the right, then it is on. Alright guys, so our engine is starting up. We can see the jet fuel, the fumes are coming out. Alright, and for taxi preparations, we need, if you want some realism, you need to set your taxi light on, which is the very bottom left light. This is another three-way switch. So, and the first option is taxi, the next option is takeoff. So, obviously we want to leave this as taxi. Alright, and looks like both of our engines are stable. We can tell that by the 19.5 on both N1s, and the temperature is the exact same on both, and the N2. So, with that being said, we can now run off our engine generators, which means we can turn off our APU bleed and our APU master switch, and this will shut off our APU. And with that being said, you are now ready for taxi. So go ahead and release your parking brake, throttle forward, and you need to use your rudder in order to steer the aircraft. Just like this. And I will get back to you guys when we are holding short of the runway. Alright guys, we are now holding short of runway 36 center, and we need to do some final things before we take off. First, what we want to do is arm our speed brake, which is going to be right down here. All you have to do is pull it up, just like that, so this white strip thing is showing. Next, what we want to do is set our flaps to 1, because that is what we set in the MCDU. And then we want to set our auto brake to max. The only reason we do this is when we reverse our engines, if you notice, it applies the maximum auto brake, and the spoilers are supposed to come up. I don't know why they're not, but in a real aircraft they will do that. So that's solely for aborted takeoffs, just as a safety precaution. Next, what we want to do is flip on all of our lights for takeoff. So we want to take this taxi light and turn it to takeoff, turn both of these on all the way, and our runway turn off lights can also come on. Just like that, and we are ready for takeoff. So let's go ahead and taxi onto the runway. And you can come out here and see these nice bright lights. And you want to try to get as good of a lineup as you can. And by the way, we are going to be following this green line down here on our ND. Alright, so here's the runway. Alright, and one more thing, if you're not familiar with Airbus, on the throttle quadrant there is some different settings. So we are currently at 0. I'm going to set my parking brake. And you see this little arrow right here, it says CL, and it's an arrow. That stands for climb. The next one is FLX, MCT, this is the flex, and then TOGA is the maximum throttle, right there. And TOGA stands for its takeoff go-around speed, so that's like your maximum power. All we're going to be using is our flex temp, which is this middle selection here, and if you throttle up slowly you can actually hear the clicks. You can hear the different clicks. So essentially we're going to set it to flex because this saves on fuel, and it's something Airbus implemented, and we don't need that much power. We don't need TOGA in order to take off because we are on a long and dry runway. After we take off, we do want to set this down to climb power, and this engages the auto throttle. You'll notice it's already lit up, but when you set this to climb power, the Airbus will automatically follow the speeds. And if this does have 3 dots, or like 3 zeros like that, and you're able to change it, then you need to click the up arrow on the knob to put it back to these 3 bars. These should both look like that. Alright, so let's release our parking brake. And for realism, they do throttle up to about 40% power first to make sure they're stable. So like about to there. And then they'll throttle up to flex. So 1 click, 2 click. There we go. And then all you have to do is steer. And if you remember our V1 speed, I believe it was like 121 knots. Rotate was like 124, something like that. So we're going to watch our indicated speed. Also, you do want forward pressure on the stick because the nose does have a tendency to come up. So there we are already at our rotate speed, so we can go ahead and pull back on the stick. Keep it steady, and we are now in the air. And boy, this is accelerating quickly. So once we're in the air, we can get our gear up. Just like that.
You were not cleared to take off.
I know I wasn't clear. But then you want to lower your throttle to that climb setting that I said. And you'll notice that it just idled the engines all the way down. Because it is now controlling the thrust. And it's trying to keep it on this purple arrow right here, which looks like about 185. Alright, and next what we want to do is start our bank via the Bobsies for departure, if you remember. And we can follow our flight director here. And we want to follow this green arrow. Also, shortly after takeoff, we can raise our flaps all the way up. Just like that. And the Airbus is nice, it automatically trims. I am not doing that, it is automatically trimming. Alright, and we are banking towards this green line here. And once we are pretty much in line with it, we can engage the autopilot. Also guys, you can keep your throttles right here on this climb thrust pretty much until you're descending, and you can even leave it on then. Alright, so now that we are on course, we can engage autopilot 1 right here. And there we go. Now the aircraft is flying itself, and it will fly itself until I disengage autopilot. And it'll descend and everything. Well, you do have to do something for descent, but that's another video. So guys, that is how you fly the Airbus A320 and start it up from cold and dark and be on your way to your destination. So that's going to do it for today's video, guys. I hope you learned how to start up the Airbus A320. Please do like and subscribe and hit that that little bell so you get a notification when I upload more Flight Simulator 2020 videos. Feel free to join the Discord. I'm always looking for new members, and I will see you guys on the next video.